Back in September of 2013, Valve announced that they would be collaborating with multiple PC manufacturers, such as the likes of Alienware and Zotac, to bring to market a new product called the Steam Machine. These were machines that utilized relatively standard PC hardware that were intended to sit underneath your television to replace your gaming console. Why buy an Xbox or a PlayStation when you could play all the games you already own on your Steam account? With that announcement, they also said that these machines would be running their own custom operating system, which would be based on Linux, called SteamOS. Now, if you're like me and you love the Steam Deck, you're not unfamiliar with SteamOS at this point. SteamOS has come a long way from when it was originally announced, and so has PC hardware. These days, you can fit a ton of power into a relatively small package, either building a powerful mini ITX PC with a dedicated GPU, or picking up a reasonably priced mini PC with an AMD APU inside. So that got me thinking, what if I built my own Steam machine in 2023? Is it possible to take some PC components from my old PC build and repurpose them to make my own game console? It absolutely is, so let's talk about it. Before we get into it, a like to the video and a sub to the channel would be awesome. Thank you. The idea for this video started way back when I got my Steam Deck. I think it's great that I can dock my deck and hook it up to a TV or monitor, but I wanted more. What if I wanted the full power of a gaming PC to run games at higher fidelity and frame rates? Well, you could argue that I could just stick to gaming on my nice PC in my office at my desk, but what if I don't want to do that? What if I want to hook it up to a TV and the speakers in my living room to play games that way? Well, another argument could be, why don't you just stream the games from your PC to your docked Steam Deck? You have a really nice home network, and that would be a pretty great experience. Sure, I could do that, but that's way less fun than building my own Steam machine. I mentioned streaming games using my home network. Well, that was admittedly my first idea. Several months ago, I purchased a second-hand Alienware Alpha. Yes, the same machine that Dell released early because Valve wasn't ready to release SteamOS just yet. They sold the Alienware Alpha, which would later be used as a base for one of the most affordable versions of the Steam machines. Mine boasted an Intel Core i3-4170T, a dual-core CPU with 4 threads that only had a 35-watt TDP. A mere 4 gigs of RAM, a 500 gigabyte hard drive, as well as a non-removable GTX 960 2GB. Not a very impressive system in 2023, but I was going to change that. I ordered an i7-4785T from eBay, which was one of the most powerful CPUs you could spec one of these alphas out with way back in 2013. And I had a 1TB SSD and 16 gigabytes of RAM laying around in one of my drawers. It was going to be amazing. I always thought these things were really cool and wanted one, but could never justify it. At this point, you can kind of imagine where this is going. After disassembling the Alpha and replacing the CPU, RAM, storage, and CMOS battery, I was ready to get things running. Little did I know that in a lot of cases with these cheap machines, once you remove the CMOS battery, you have a chance of bricking the entire thing. I did make sure to test it when I got it, and it worked and had Windows 10 installed. But after all that work, I was left with a pretty paperweight that refuses to boot to this day. I thought that maybe if I let it sit for a while, it maybe just would magically work, but alas, it's still not functioning. So, after I got over being sad about the wasted time, effort, and money put into what was supposed to be a fun and reasonably inexpensive project, I set my eyes on something bigger. I had recently upgraded my PC, which meant that I had a few extra components laying around that weren't being used for anything. And since it was an AMD platform with a Ryzen 7 3700X on a mini ATX motherboard, it was a perfect candidate for my Steam Machine project. Also installed on the motherboard was a 32GB kit of G-Skill Trident Z Neo and a 1TB NVMe drive from Samsung. My only issue was that I didn't have an AMD graphics card. If I was going to run something like SteamOS on this thing, it needed to be an AMD GPU because NVIDIA cards don't currently work with operating systems like HoloISO or Chimera OS. Luckily, I was able to acquire a GPU that I've always wanted and at a great price. A few months ago, I picked up a Radeon 7 locally for only $125. It's not in perfect perfect condition, and the fans should probably be replaced with new ones, as they have a bit of rattle to them. But I could not have asked for a better deal at the time for such a cool graphics card. With this Radeon 7, I should be able to play games at my TV's native resolution of 4K. The 16 gigabytes of HBM2 is still very impressive these days, especially since the RTX 4070 that I just bought still only has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. NVIDIA do be stingy with that VRAM though. For the case, I opted for this Cooler Master NR200P that I had left over from my old build as well. It's still one of my favorite mini ITX cases, and it will do the job just fine with plenty of airflow to keep everything nice and cool. And the CPU cooler is the Scythe Fuma 2 that fits in the NR200P quite snugly. Now that I've told you all the parts, let's put this thing together. It's taken me so long to make this video that while I was making it, I ended up swapping the 3700X with a 5700G that I got in a PC flip that I was working on. So I know the footage shows the older CPU, but just know that what's actually in there is a 5700G. I've opted to install Chimera OS, which, as their website states, is an operating system that provides an out-of-the-box couch gaming experience. It's an Arch-based Linux distribution that is designed to run Steam's big picture interface on startup, much like the Steam Deck. And much like most Linux distributions, Chimera OS is free to download and open source. I considered Hollow ISO, but that project hasn't been updated in a while. And I even considered installing Windows 11 and just booting straight into Steam Big Picture mode for maximum compatibility for games. But that was against the spirit of the project. I wanted a Linux-based gaming console to play games on my TV. I've used Linux many times over the years, but I am by no means a Linux expert. I've messed around with plenty of different distributions, and I typed this script on my 2013 MacBook running Pop! OS installed on it. That being said, installing Chimera OS was quick and easy, and I had no issues with it. I'm confident that if you are wanting to do something similar to what I'm trying to accomplish here, you'd have a pretty easy time doing it. Following the instructions on their website made it very easy. Using Balena Etcher to flash the ISO to my USB drive of choice. Using Chimera OS is a very similar experience to that of the operating system on the Steam Deck. It's just like what you're used to seeing on the Deck and the newest version of Steam Big Picture mode. The desktop experience, while being slightly different, is clean, minimal, and easy to use. If you aren't familiar with Linux, it might take a bit to get used to, but I don't think you should have too much to be worried about. It's worth noting that for each game, you need to set the resolution before launching the game. If you don't, it will just default to 720p since this thing is convinced that it's a Steam Deck. Okay, now let's talk about some performance numbers. Red Dead Redemption 2 at 1440p with a mix of ultra and high and medium settings hovered around 70 FPS. This is what I've played probably the most since building this, and it's been a really good experience. Monster Hunter Rise 4K high settings. This game would give me just about 60 FPS, but it was not a solid 60 FPS. Dropping the settings down to average settings gave me about 90 FPS at 4K. Hitman World of Assassination, or Hitman 3, 1440p at the default settings. The first benchmark, Dartmoor, gave me a 60 FPS average, while the second benchmark, in Dubai, gave me another 60 FPS average. The big issue I had with this game, for whatever reason, I had to launch it in desktop mode. This is one of those games that has a launcher before the game starts up, so I think that might have been the issue. It works just fine for me on the Steam Deck, but I think that's aided by the touchscreen and the touchpads. Elden Ring, 1440p, all high settings. GameScope, for whatever reason, wasn't working for me on this, but this felt like a solid 60 FPS. It took me many tries to get this game to work, and I had to launch it from desktop mode to avoid freezing to a white screen. I did try to run this at 4K, but it felt like 40 FPS to me, which didn't feel great. This one's just for fun. Power Wash Simulator. 1440p high settings. This one gave me a locked 60 FPS. I really don't like playing this game with a controller, so I think the Steam controller might have been the better move here. GTA 5, 1440p, very high settings. The built-in benchmark gave me 85 to 90 FPS. I actually haven't played this game in a long time, but I know it's a popular older game that people still use to benchmark. Overall, I'm very happy with how this project turned out. But it's not without its quirks though, and I'll touch on those briefly. 1. While having a weekend away from the house and visiting some friends, I found that connecting controllers that are very similar, like Xbox controllers over Bluetooth, can be very confusing, as the system doesn't do anything to differentiate these controllers in the pairing menu. It just gives them the same name with no way to rename them to prevent confusion in the future. Since this is supposed to be a console, this is a bit annoying to deal with. It gets the job done, but ultimately, if you're going for a similar setup, you may want a variety of controllers so you can differentiate them in the OS. 2. For whatever reason, I had a heck of a time trying to bring up the right-hand side menu with my Xbox controller connected via Bluetooth. Pushing the Xbox button opened up the menu on the left just fine, but frustratingly, every time I wanted to open the menu on the right side to see or adjust settings, I had to find a way around just using the Xbox plus A button hotkey. Not a deal breaker, as I know I've had it working before, but it was annoying during testing. 3. I originally had an issue using Steam Remote Play. For whatever reason, the screen would just go black and it wouldn't connect to my PC. But since I started conceptualizing and writing this video, the issue has been resolved. My main point here being that since this is not a Steam Deck, and the hardware and software varies differently from the Steam Deck, you may experience certain inconsistencies between the deck and your homemade Steam machine. And 4. Not all games work on Linux, but this is changing rapidly. If you're wanting to play certain games that don't work on SteamOS or Linux, go ahead and install Windows 11 and boot into Big Picture mode. But the future of gaming on Linux is bright, and I'm glad to see how far it's come. Hello, it's me. I'm editing this video right now, and while I was trying to get some footage for the video, I stumbled upon another bug. So while I've had a lot of luck with using Bluetooth controllers, today is not one of those days. I went to turn the controller on and it wouldn't connect automatically, which it has always done in the past. And going into the Bluetooth pairing menu, it's just nothing's there. Nothing is there at all. Normally it shows the stuff that you've paired with in the past, and this time it just doesn't show anything at all. Going into the desktop mode, again, no luck. I'll go and try and turn Bluetooth on, and it's like permanently off for some reason. I'm a little frustrated, but back to the video. And that's pretty much it. I took some older hardware that I had laying around, installed Chimera OS on it, and turned it into something fun and usable. Having this as a secondary machine attached to my TV and for bringing with me for weekends away from the house, I think this thing is awesome. Although there are some things that I would have liked to have done differently, like maybe a smaller case for better portability, or maybe adding some more storage. It's easy for me to look past some of the shortcomings of the software experience since I have the patience to deal with them. Some games I have a better time playing at my desk with a mouse and keyboard anyway, and for everything else, this thing mostly fits the bill. Anyway, I really wanted to get this video made before the release of the SteamOS 3.5 update, since it's rumored that they'll finally be releasing the official ISO for SteamOS. And people are talking about Chimera OS right now. If you found this video entertaining or informative, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'm very close to YouTube's new partner requirements, so anything you do is a huge help. Let me know down in the comments if you would have done something differently. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for now. Have a great week.